Hello and welcome back to video number 2. So I have my whiteboard out. We're going to learn notes, or start learning, I guess, notes on the staff because it's kind of a lot to learn all at once. But we'll start. So first things first, let's just really quickly review what we learned in video number 1, or some of the things we learned. This is called a treble clef. This guy here, that's backwards, is called a bass clef. And like, ooh, that's not a really pretty bass clef, but you get the gist. Okay, so as I said in the other video, middle C is the dividing line here. So when we write middle C in the treble clef, it looks like that. It's just the distance between the lines, okay, is the distance between the bottom line and middle C. So it's about that far away. The same is true for the bass clef. So the distance between each of these lines, about that far away, that's where middle C is on the bass clef. Here's the tricky part. These are the same notes, okay? So when you're drawing it in the bass clef, it's obviously going to be closer to the bass clef, and in the treble clef, it's going to be closer to here. But the way I want you to think about these, oh, I need an eraser. The way I want you to think about these in your mind is always being in the exact same spot, because it is on the piano, right? This note, middle C. This note, middle C as well. So even though they look different, they're the same on the piano. What I want you to remember to keep in mind is that there's like an imaginary dotted line running through, see how well I can draw a dotted line, an imaginary dotted line running through the two staves that's exactly halfway in between, and this is where middle C actually is, okay, because it's the same distance. The reason we write it like that and it doesn't look like it's right in the middle is that if all this was squished together and middle C was still just one extra line in here, it would be so hard to read. It would be like nearly impossible to read. So that's why it's written like this. Also, I have to turn this when I say dramatic things to you, so that's why. So that is middle C covered. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about that or anything in video 1, just make a note so you remember to ask me next time we're in person. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the lines and the spaces on the staff. So as I said, this is called a treble clef. This is called a bass clef. When you have music, which is most piano music that's written out, ooh, wrong way, that's written out like this, and they're together, the treble clef and the bass clef, this is called the grand staff. Okay, so that's all that means is just treble clef and bass clef. So if you hear me or someone else say that, that's what we're talking about. Okay, moving on. Now let's do some counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Good news for you, it's the same in the bass clef. 5 lines and 4 spaces. So now let's start talking about what notes are on those lines and spaces. And we have silly sayings to remember them that we use to remember them, yes. So we'll start with the spaces in the treble clef. The notes are F, A, C, and E. And if you notice, that spells out the word face. So we're saying for spaces in the treble clef is, hold on, okay, in the treble clef, it's face is in the space. So that's your silly little saying to help remember that. Okay, going back now, we'll learn the lines in the treble clef. Okay, so the line notes are E, G, B, D, and F. And the silly little saying we use for those notes, let's go back around, is every good boy does fine. So E, G, B, D, and F. Now, you might have heard it before with every good boy does fudge. That's also totally fine. There's a few different sayings. That's just the one I usually use. If every good boy does, or deserves fudge is better for you and you remember better that way, that's totally fine too. So there you go. Now you know all of the notes on the treble clef. There's of course notes below and above, but we'll get to that eventually. So face is in the space. Every good boy does fine. That's our treble clef notes. And if you look, if you bounce back and forth and you start with the bottom E, we know that we're just going in the alphabet order. So we start A, B, C, D, E, F. Oh, I went over. A, B, C, D, E, F on the space, G is the next line. Then we restart. A, B, C, D, E, F is on this line. And then if you kept going, G would be here. A would be the next line. B would be above that. C, D, E, and so on and so forth. So hopefully you can kind of see now that's laid out here how that pattern works. I know you're not going to know it immediately right off the bat, but hopefully it makes sense how it's all laid out. You can also go the other direction, right? It's a little harder to think of the alphabet in reverse, but if you count down, or I guess not count down, but go backwards in the alphabet. So we have E going down now, next in the alphabet under this line, which is E. This note would be D, and then we can confirm that that's correct because we already know that this is middle C. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense so far. Like I said, if not, just make a note and remember to ask me when we're in person for lessons. Going on to the bass clef now. The notes in the spaces are all cows eat, are A, C, E, G, and I kind of gave the saying away there. We say for spaces in the bass clef, all cows eat grass. All cows eat grass. Okay, so that's spaces. And then this is lines. I'll move this so you can take a picture of it after. Do not worry. And also, Jeremy, don't worry if you're like, holy cow, that is a lot to remember. That's okay, because it's on a video, so you can go back and reference it. And these are also concepts that we're going to constantly be talking about. So if you don't know it right away, that's totally fine. We'll keep learning it as we go. Okay, so that's spaces in the bass clef. All cows eat grass. Now let's figure out what the lines are. First note is G, then we have B, D, F, come on, F, and A is our top line in the bass clef. And really quick, before I show you the saying, let's confirm. If A is this line, then B would be the space above it, and check it out. We're back where we started, middle C. So hopefully, so far that's making sense. I know there's a lot going on here, but hopefully the pattern is making sense. Okay, and the fourth and final little saying we use to remember everything, I like to say, good burritos, oops, O-S, don't fall apart. Okay, I'm just making sure you can still see me. Okay, so good burritos don't fall apart. G, B, D, F, A. Now here again, there's a lot of sayings for this. You might have heard good boys deserve fudge always. That's a pretty common one. Good birds don't fly away. That's fine too. Whatever is easiest for you to remember. But I will say, for this one, if you like to think every good boy deserves fudge, don't think for this one, good boys deserve fudge always, because that one's tricky when they have a lot of the same words. I know it's going to be same words because they're all the same notes, but try and pick, if you're liking the every good boy deserves fudge, one of them, and try not to make it both. Hopefully that makes sense, just because if you have the same sayings, it gets confusing. So I'm going to move this up now, and this is your moment to either pause the video or take a screenshot of this so you can remember those little sayings, and I'll give you a printout too when we're back in person. And then I'll flip it around, and you can do the same thing with the front of the board. If I don't get stuck. Okay, and then Same thing, maybe I'll move it a bit closer. Maybe just take a screenshot of this just as for something for you to reference and remember. And then we'll just do a couple, I'll write down a couple more things for you to remember. So now that we have these broken down into the spaces and the lines, let's just put them all together just so you can see how it all works. So we have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F at the top. And I'll go down to middle C too. So we have D over here, and then this line would be middle C. Okay, so now I'm gonna rewrite the same over for the bass clef. I'm just gonna scooch this over. It's kind of taking up too much room. Okay, now we'll do the same for the bass clef. So we start with G here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A again at the top, and we'll go to middle C here too. So B will be here, and then this line here, middle C. Okie doke. Now, we're going to line them up with the notes on the piano. Oops, I drew the note. I didn't write a C. C, there we go. So, we'll just call this middle C for right now, M for middle, and then C. So we know the notes, A, B, C, just because, you know, the alphabet, that's how it goes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then we'll just go G, F, E, D, and C. So here's where the treble clef and bass clef meet on this note here. Treble clef is these notes. Bass clef is going to be these notes. Okay, hopefully that makes sense so far. And now, is that all in frame? Yes. Okay, so now we're going to match up the notes with their keys so you can kind of see how that all works. So these are all just going to be a bunch of diagonal lines, but I want you to try and just watch for what lines up with what and see if that makes sense to you. And then if we went further, if we went lower than that, now we could keep drawing them on the treble clef if we wanted to, and we just go like that. But lucky for us, we don't have to. We have the bass clef there all laid out. So my lines are going to get a little creative here. B, A, and then so on and so forth. I think I'm making it more complicated by drawing it like this. Oh shoot, I was going to say let me pause the video and draw it better, but I can't pause. So for you, you can watch me struggle and erase everything, or you can pause it. Sorry, not pause, but fast forward about 30 seconds. I'm just going to redraw this for you so it looks less messy. Those didn't line up quite as good as I wanted. So you can fast forward to where it looks like I'm talking again, or you can just wait a couple seconds here. Just make some room over here. I gave you a chance to screenshot that already, so you should be fine. So we'll say, I'll draw a middle C actually where it is. Okay, now we'll have B, A, G, F, E, D, C. That's not drawn very well. Okay, C, B, A, G, and then we'll just do all the ones in the treble clef too. Okay, and then we'll finish this up, I guess. Or no, you don't need to. Okay, fine. So, there we go. Middle C right here. Okay, so the lines are a little bit better, I think. These are spread out a bit more here. Okay, and then I'll draw a few more notes here. B, A, B, A, G, F. Oh, I just needed B, A, G. What am I doing? Okay, there we go. B, A, and G. Okay, there we go. So this is going to be your final screenshot of the day from these video lessons, but this is good to have handy because this never changes. These notes are always going to be these notes. So it's good to kind of visually see how they're laid out. But as you can see, you knew this already, I'm sure, but going up on the page just means going up on the piano as well. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I 100% don't expect you to remember all of that, like right off the bat, but it's all things that you're gonna need to know for theory. So hopefully that was some stuff you didn't know, at least. Again, I'm really not sure what you do and don't know. So hopefully that was some new information and you learned something today. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and starting your lessons. I'm super excited. Your mom was saying you do, oh, now I forget. You either do guitar or drums already. So that's super cool. I love having students that already know some music. So I'm really excited to meet you. We're going to have lots of fun, I hope, together. I know I'll make it fun and I know you will make it fun. So hopefully we have fun. I'm sure we will. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed your 2 videos for me. I look forward to meeting you and that's it. So yes, have a great however long until I see you next, and I'll look forward to meeting you. See ya!